Well, the Nebraska Rural Poll holds the title for the longest running survey of rural life in the entire United States. It's an annual snapshot of rural perspectives conducted by Nebraska Extension and its Community Development Division, which is called Rural Prosperity Nebraska. This poll is a valuable tool for state lawmakers, giving them a clearer picture of some of the issues impacting rural Nebraskans. Rural communities don't always get the same level of attention as more populated areas, but the Nebraska Rural Poll helps change that. By acting as a collective voice for rural residents, this poll aims to bridge the gap and make sure those voices are heard in policy discussions.
So the Nebraska Rural Poll is an annual survey that's sent out to a sample of rural Nebraskans every year, and it asks respondents about their views about their community, things that they're concerned about their community, their ratings of services in their community, and then some special topics that we ask about every year depending on things that are happening kind of in the world and in rural Nebraska.
This poll is not sent out en masse to rural areas. However, the poll is sent to several hundred rural citizens randomly. That means if you do have to be one of those randomly selected to participate, your opinions will be very important when it's all said and done.
We get a list of a sample of rural households, usually about 6,000 that we receive every year, and we mail out paper copies of the Rural Poll survey to folks to invite them to participate. We do send them reminders and things like that. So it's not the entire, rural Nebraska community. It's a select group. So we also encourage people, if they get the Rural Poll, which we'll be sending out in the next couple of months, to please fill it out because it's an important time to have your voice be heard about important issues in your community. So rural communities tend to have kind of unique needs and concerns that are sometimes different from those living in urban or metro communities in Nebraska or across the U.S. And we really would like to understand those better. We'd also like to be able to communicate our findings to people like policymakers, local leaders, researchers are able to dig into that data a little bit more to really understand those unique needs and concerns that might not always be heard in, through other types of processes.
The Nebraska Rural Poll has been in existence for the past 30 years, and throughout that time, Nebraska Extension has yielded some very positive data and has become more attuned with the needs, priorities, and viewpoints of Nebraska's rural citizens.
So we've really tracked rural Nebraskans' views about their services that they have in their community and the health of their community, their economic well-being. And some things we see are that rural Nebraskans tend to be pretty optimistic overall over the long term, but we see changes over time. More recently we've seen concerns about economic concerns, concerns about workforce opportunities, healthcare, concerns about broadband access, but we also do see a lot of resilience among our respondents, that people have kind of an optimistic view towards some of those things too.
The data gleaned from the Rural Poll is one of the best tools out there to disseminate information about life in rural areas to our elected officials. These reports are also publicly available for anyone who'd like to look through the data themselves.
One of the biggest impacts of the Rural Poll, I think, is just capturing the voices of rural Nebraskans and then sharing it and being able to disseminate it to people like policymakers in our state, and for researchers to really understand what is actually going on in rural communities and look closely at that data. Also for local leaders to understand what is going on with rural Nebraskans. So we have a lot of reports and information on the Rural Poll's website, which is ruralpoll.unl.edu. We're also integrating some of the data into the extension resource, All Things Nebraska, which is an interactive kind of mapping tool. And so soon, people will be able to kind of explore the data over years and observe trends that we've seen in the Rural Poll over time.